Welcome to Puberty Changes. In this presentation, you will learn what is puberty, and specifically what we'll do is talk about some of the puberty changes that boys and girls go through. I think you'll be surprised that there are lots of changes that all children and youth go through, but there are some that are very specific to boys and girls. And then at the end, we'll give you the opportunity, once you leave this presentation, to do a quick puberty quiz to test your knowledge. I know this is not the first time I've mentioned in these presentations about being prepared. I think this little cartoon says it all. No ma'am, the course on sex education isn't compulsory, however puberty is. We can't slow puberty down, we can't speed it up. I tell children in the classroom that you have your own body clock that's just right for you, and you will go through those changes at a rate that is just right for you. But I think it's really easy, particularly as parents, to hope that our children won't start puberty and these changes won't happen and that they can stay young forever, but unfortunately puberty is compulsory. So what is puberty? Puberty is the process of a child growing and maturing into an adult, and when puberty starts is going to be different for every child, and it can actually be different even in families. So you may see that your one child starts puberty as early as 8 or 9, others will be much later, and we actually know that particularly for males, puberty can continue until around the age of 20. And I've mentioned this before, that girls tend to start puberty earlier than boys, and because of that, boys tend to finish puberty later than girls. But as I said before, they have their own timeline, their own body clock, and puberty can happen slowly and take several years to complete and comes in those waves. And I've given this slide the title More Than Just Hair and Funny Places because I think for some parents they see the physical changes and the children see the physical changes that are happening to them. They can actually see and touch that. But there are much more than physical changes happening. The emotional changes, which can include those mood swings, it can include those attractions such as a crush, but also the social changes. So the relationships that may change as a child or a youth wants more independence. So the relationship changes in their family, the relationships in their peer groups, even the relationships with their teachers. And so is puberty different for boys and girls? And so many changes will be very similar. Things like the relationship changes and actually some of the emotional changes as well. The main differences are the ones that are biological. And so particularly for females, menstruation, and I think for many girls and many families, menstruation and starting your period seems to be the beginning of puberty. However, for many of those girls, it starts before they even have their periods. And for boys, a major biological change comes in the form of nocturnal emissions or wet dreams because sperm production has started. It's very important to be very concrete and honest and open, very practical with children with intellectual disabilities so that they're prepared for these changes. And some may never show any interest in what lies ahead, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't prepare them. And an important note that transgender youth, so people whose gender identity, their outward appearance, their expression, and perhaps their anatomy don't fit with what we conventionally see as male or female, may find puberty very difficult. They're going to need some support to recognise that their changing body needs care no matter which gender they identify with. Puberty can be a time when a child who is questioning their gender identity, that's a time that they can feel very confused. They want those puberty or may want those puberty changes to stop. They see lots of changes happening to their body and they can start to get quite angry and frustrated and upset about that. And so at this point, this is something that we really would need some professional help, and talking to a doctor, family physician, a pediatrician, or even another healthcare provider would be helpful. So So what's the same for boys and girls? So some of these physical characteristics are some of the very first things actually that you will see change with your child. Some height growth, so growing taller, and you maybe even look at that child and think, I only just bought them jeans, how come they need new pants, kind of thing. Hair growing underarms, that's the same for boys and girls. It's actually quite interesting because lots of boys don't think that girls or women have hair under their arms, and that could be put down to the fact that in our culture in Canada, many women and girls will shave under their arms. Pubic hair growing around the genitals, oily skin and hair, sweat and body odor, and we are going to spend some time in the next presentation talking about hygiene, because those changes definitely bring about some hygiene challenges. On top of some of those physical things that are the same, many of the emotional changes, such as mood swings, are very similar for boys and girls. I think sometimes we believe that because of the hormonal changes associated with having your period with menstruation, only the girls get moody and have those feelings of feeling great, one moment, and then feeling either sad, depressed, down, lonely, or angry even a moment later. We kind of associate those just with girls, but they happen to both. And then relationship changes. So puberty in males can start any time between the ages of 9 and 14 and last till around age 20. And some of those physical changes that are unique to biological males include the developing broader shoulders, and that's happening because testosterone is allowing more muscle to be laid down and develop. Growing hair on the face. Some of the younger teens won't see hair for a long time on their face, and I always tell them it depends on how dark your hair is, and sometimes they'll be very excited that they have hair, and other times that there'll be none, but certainly once they are in their late teens and their early 20s, most will start to grow hair on their face. We'll see growth of the penis and testicles. Boys will start to have unexpected erections, and we want to do some teaching around, well, what do you do with that? Why is that happening? It's not that you're thinking about sex or sexuality. It comes out of the blue. It's hormonal, and we teach them to sit down. That can help the erection go away, or to put a hoodie in front of their erection so that they're not embarrassed when they're with other people. And then their body is now producing sperm. The testicles actually produce sperm once puberty begins, so there is that ability to ejaculate semen, which is the sticky white fluid, and there is the potential for wet dreams or nocturnal emissions. Some males get wet dreams, others do not, and we usually tell them that it's just their body's way of practicing that everything's working. And so for girls, puberty can start any time between the ages of 8 and 16, and so girls will start puberty earlier and finish puberty earlier. And some of the physical changes that are unique to biological females include the hips begin to widen. So with many girls, and as they grow into young women, you will see that hourglass kind of more curvy kind of definition with the hips. And the hips widen really in preparation. It's the pelvis widening in preparation eventually for a pregnancy. So this is purely biological. Breasts begin to develop, and what we do know is that breast buds, those small little mounds that develop in girls, usually happen around a year before a girl starts to have her period. It is normal for vaginal discharge to start to be produced. Vaginal discharge is not a sign of an infection always. Certainly it is normal, and it should be kind of clear and opaque in consistency. If the vaginal discharge had a bad odor or was a different color, that would be the time to visit with a doctor, a healthcare provider, to get that checked out. And probably the biggest change for girls is that they start to ovulate, so the eggs are released from the ovaries, and girls start to have their periods. They begin that process of menstruation, and we're going to talk a lot more about menstruation in the next presentation.